Hello friends, welcome back to part 25 in my Tesla earnings forecast video review series. I am joined as always by my co-host, Loki, who is curled up in bed. He has eschewed the blue blanket today in favor of just laying down on his bed. Let's get back to sharing my desktop and continuing the tour through my detailed forecast model tab. This is how I forecast Tesla. So stage 1 we reviewed in the previous video, part 24. We talked about how I forecast the production and the deliveries for every model at every site. That's the first stage. What's the second stage? Well, in the second stage, we've got to figure out how to forecast how much revenue Tesla is going to make. So we already have one of the pieces we need to do that from stage 1. We have the deliveries. Deliveries are really the only number we forecast in stage 1 that we're going to use from here on out to figure out how to forecast the income statement for Tesla. So I'll just keep scrolling down the list. So we've made it all the way down to row 215. I'm going to call this stage 2. Stage 2. ASP by site model and revenue type. What's ASP? It's average selling price, which is a very commonly used acronym meaning revenue per unit sold, right? In the auto industry, that's revenue per delivery. So how do you figure out how much revenue Tesla is going to make selling the Fremont Model S? Well, we've already figured out how many of them they're going to sell. That's the number of deliveries. So that gives you the volume piece. The next piece we need is the rate piece. If you know how much volume there is and you know at what rate, meaning at how much revenue per vehicle, then that'll tell you how much revenue there is, right? So what can people who want to buy a Fremont Model S spend their money on? Well, for that, the answer is you just go to the website where Tesla is selling their cars. You don't buy Teslas from a dealership, you buy them from your phone, right? Or your computer, whatever's convenient for you. And you just run down the list of options that are available to a buyer of a Model S. So the first option isn't an option at all. It's the base configuration. If you want to pay, if you want a Tesla Model S, you have to pay at least the minimum base price for that model. That's the first thing you want to bring in here. And in 2022, we saw this number rise from about 87 grand to begin the year, past 90, past 96 to 97 as Tesla was raising prices on the Model S throughout most of the year. And you can see my calculations in here for figuring out what the mix is. There was an $81,500 starting price on the Fremont Model S back in 2021, and a bunch of people ordered at that price and didn't get their vehicle until 2022. So then they raised the price to $94,990, and then they raised it to $99,900. And so there was a mix of those prices assumed in my forecast. Then they raised the price to $104,990 in Q3. So some of the vehicles sold in Q3 were sold at that price. I'm assuming a very tiny percent of them. And then in Q4, more of them were sold at that price. So people may look at this and glance at it and say, well, that's impossible. Tesla couldn't have had the highest prices of the year in Q4 of 2022. Well, yeah, they could have if they had already filled these orders that were placed at a lower base price, right? I did dock this one $1,000 for the U.S. deliveries of mid to late December. There was an incentive to go ahead and take delivery. It started at $3,750 and then at the end of December rose to $7,500 to take delivery of your Model S. In the U.S., not all Model S's sold were sold in the U.S., and not all of them sold in the US were sold in the mid to late part of December, right? So if they were sold before that, they didn't get the price discount for taking delivery in October or November or the very beginning of December. All right, so what do we have for 2023 in our forecast? Well, Tesla reduced the price from $104,990 to $94,990. My assumption is that 90% of sales in Q1 will be at that lower base price, with only a few people having taken delivery of their Model S early in January before the price cuts went into effect. And then that $94,990 will just be the base price for Model S until further notice. And this is as of the last time I updated my model, so February 18th. If there have been price adjustments since then, I'll capture those in my next forecast. When I revisit all of these assumptions again, I do revisit all of them twice per quarter, which is enough for me because there is a lot of detail in this model. Sometimes I'll go in here and make an adjustment or two off cycle, but for the most part I'm just coming in here twice per quarter and truing up my assumptions to what I think they are now. All right, what's the next thing you could buy from the Tesla website when you're buying your Model S? You could pay extra for one of the premium colors, like the multi-coat red, which is a pretty fantastic looking color for a car. That's a $2,500 option. And then there's also a $1,500 paint option. So I think most people shelling out the big bucks for Model S don't want the free color of paint. So maybe you get a $1,600 revenue lift from paint colors that people want on their Model S so they don't look like everybody else's Model S. Next, for the performance package, I've got that most people aren't going to buy the performance package, but 35% of people will, and that's a $20,000 option for Model S. So 20,000 times 0.35 gives you $7,000 average performance package revenue per Model S sold, is how that works. It's the take rate times the price of the option. Then we've got wheels. $1,350 is what I'm assuming for wheel upgrades. You can buy a $1,500 set of wheels as an upgrade or a $4,500 wheels upgrade. I'm assuming, half the people take the basic wheels and the other half buy one or the other wheel upgrade. Then we've got the interior, so that's a $2,000 option to get the alternative Model S interior. I've got a 45% take rate on that. I think that's the white seats option, people like that. Then there's the full self-driving option, which I've got growing from what it was the previous quarter, and that's growing from what it was the previous quarter, and that's growing from a 45% take rate at a $12,000 option. So Tesla has raised the price of FSD since then. So some of that lift we're getting for free. And that's about where I think the average full self-driving revenue per Model S is. These days, the Model S buyers can afford full self-driving more than the Model 3 and Model Y buyers can, so you'll see a higher take rate for it on the higher priced vehicles. And that gets you to the cash buyer ASP, which is just the total of all of these numbers. This is how much the buyer of a Model S thinks they're signing up to pay for. And then after this, we have to do some adjustments if we want to get to what the total revenue per Model S sold is. What are those? The first one is a leased vehicles adjustment. We have to dock this amount for people who are leasing instead of buying their Model S because Tesla will not get this much money from the people who are leasing the Model S. They're only going to make 3 years worth of payments that total a lesser amount than $114,000. So the percentage of them, it's about 14%. Who buy Model S as a lease instead of as a cash delivery are weighing down the revenue per Model S by about $10,000. So that's the first adjustment you make. The next one is the destination and delivery fee. Everybody has to pay that, even though it's not shown on the order configuration page. There's probably a footnote that tells you. I'd have to go check. Then we've got regulatory credit sales. These have been really high in some quarters. Last year, I have them really low in my forecast for 2023. So maybe this is an area where Tesla will beat on regulatory credits. I'm not assuming that those are going to be big amounts. And then everything else. So revenue Tesla can declare that had previously been deferred because those FSD features hadn't rolled out to the buyers yet, depending on where they live and which FSD options are available for download in their region. As Tesla rolls more of those features out to more of the buyers, they can declare more of the revenue that had previously been deferred as a liability to the balance sheet, offsetting the cash Tesla took at time of delivery to somebody who bought the FSD package with their Tesla. Over-the-air upgrades, acceleration boost, that sort of thing, the monthly data plan, the FSD subscription plan, all of that hits here. Not insurance. Insurance hits the services and other area, not the automotive area. And that gets you to total revenue per delivery of $106,391, again, mostly because so many of the people who take delivery of a Model S are doing so as a lease and not as an outright purchase. And the next line that I have here is just telling me, hey, how many dollars worth of revenue am I forecasting for this model? And in millions, it's 1,059 million, which is $1.059 billion worth of revenue from Model S in Q1. So roughly 5% of Tesla's global revenue comes from selling Model S. All right, a little less than that, between 4 and 5%. Then Fremont Model X, very similarly, I'll go through this one faster. This is now a $109,990 starting price. That had been as high as $120,990 last year, but it began last year at $91,500. People forget that a year ago, Model X was cheaper than it is today at $109,990. So yeah, Tesla did announce price cuts, and from $129,990 down to $109,990, that's an $11,000 price cut, right? That sounds like a lot, except if you look at what the weighted average amount of revenue for a base config has been trending over the past year, it was less a year ago than it is today, because the prices were lower a year ago than they are today. They went up real high and they came right back down again. So people freaked out over the price cuts being such a large amount, but they were just a retracement of a price increase that may be overreached, and then Tesla adjusted it right back down again. Strategic pricing is about trying to optimize the production capacity you have against the value of the market segments who want to buy your products. And every company makes pricing and promotional decisions throughout every year, right? You go look at any auto company, you'll see them offering, manufacturer incentives, etc. All right, so same idea. You've got paint options here with a take rate and a price, performance package. It's going to be a lower take rate on the Model X than it is in the Model S, even though the Model X Plaid is an extremely fast 6-passenger family SUV. It'll beat a Lamborghini in the quarter mile if you get this performance package upgrade. The Plaid Model X Plaid upgrade. That's a very, very fast SUV. If that's what you're looking for, this is what you want to buy. The Model X with a performance package, aka Plaid Model X. Wheels upgrades. Only one kind of wheel upgrade, and it's a $5,500 price point. Then the interior and seating upgrades. You got a few different configs in Model X. Seating configs and interior colors. So it's a little bit more complicated formula here, but it's assuming there's about $3,500 on average per Model X sold of interior and seating config options that buyers take. FSD revenue per vehicle, I'm assuming, is the same as the Model S because these are the both, the two premium price point Teslas, giving you cash buyer ASP, a little bit less than it was in Q4, not by a lot. And I did dock the ASP $1,000 for that U.S. delivery incentive, which would have impacted some of the Model X buyers in Q4 of 2022. So you've got, a pretty high leased vehicles impact, a little bit higher than we saw for Model S. Same destination and delivery fee. No matter which model you buy, it's the same price. Regulatory credits, again, pretty low. They're all going to reference the same amounts per vehicle. I'm not distinguishing by model how much regulatory credit revenue there is. That's too much detail even for me to worry about what the distribution might be on that one. And then the other revenue is here, getting you to a net total revenue per delivery, about $120,000 for Model X, which is similar to what we saw a couple of quarters ago. And I've got it hovering around that level all year in 2023. Same as we saw with Model S, not really moving, around $107,000 all year. Model X, a little higher priced vehicle, so it's around $120,000. Contributing $1.2 billion per quarter-ish of revenue. Then for the Fremont Model 3, what do we have? Well, it's at a $42,990 price point now. It had been higher than that last year, $43,990 for a base starting price point. Not very different this year than it was last year, actually. So pretty similar expectations for how much revenue per Model 3 sold, with my standard assumption that the take rate for FSD will improve as the features get better and more people find out, hey, these cars can actually drive me all the way to where I want to go. I just push the button on the steering wheel and say, drive me to wherever you're going. Name a restaurant or a workplace or a sports venue, wherever you're going. Your Tesla will drive you the whole way there if you've got FSD. A lot of people don't know that, but it will. You have to monitor it. Please do if you have FSD. Pay attention as the warning on the screen tells you every time you engage FSD. Pay attention and be prepared to take over if, for whatever reason, your Tesla can't handle everything. But a lot of your trips are going to be zero intervention today, and that'll improve into the future as Ashok and the rest of the team at Tesla work on making that feature better. So there's your leased vehicles impact, much lower for Model 3 for two reasons. One, the price point is half as much as it is for Model S and Model X. And the other, the take rate for leasing is a lot lower. Fewer people lease Model 3s than lease Model S and X. Same destination and delivery fee, same regulatory credits. Other, a little over $1,000 per vehicle worth of other, making revenue per Model 3 produced at Fremont about $50,000, same as it was last year. I think a lot of people are missing this. Show me where I'm wrong. Here's the numbers. Where have I made a misstep? Why can't Tesla make $50,000 worth of revenue per delivery on Fremont Model 3s? So we'll keep going, and you'll see some other pricing impacts for other models, but this one kind of unaffected by the disastrous price cuts Tesla Q will tell you Tesla made last year. All right, next is the Fremont Model Y. So this price is now $52,990, and I think Tesla has bumped it up a couple of times from there since I did this forecast. So for the rest of the year, we probably will see these bump up a little bit more. My assumption is to $54,990 by Q3, and sustaining that in Q4. What was it last year? Well, it was a mix of $52,990 and $54,990, and there was a $62,990 price point beginning in Q2. I had a very low take rate on that price point, believing that most of what Tesla was going to deliver in Q2 would be at the lower prices they had been charging previously. Yeah, so these are my assumptions for the Fremont Model Y revenue. Not a very high charge for the performance package on the Model Y these days. That is only a $4,000 upgrade to get the performance package on your Model Y. Then we've got wheel options, interior options, full self-driving. It's the same assumption we made above for the Fremont Model 3. And so that gets you to a cash buyer ASP of 60 grand, and then after the net of these adjustments for leasing, destination delivery fees, regulatory credits, and other, it still kicks out the same number for revenue per delivery. So in the case of the Fremont Model 3, these numbers aren't very different like they are for some of the other models. You can't see this stuff unless you model it at this level of detail. So that is less in total at the bottom line than it has been every quarter last year, but not by a ton. It is lower, but not extremely low. The performance package now only 4,000, had been 5,000 last year, so a little bit of a price cut there. Fremont Roadster, don't have to worry about yet. I will scroll out here to the side so you can see what I'm assuming for this. In 2024. Now, it doesn't sound like Tesla is in any big hurry to make the Fremont Roadster, so we might not see it in 2024. I might have to push these out yet another year for the vehicle Tesla keeps not making, but I do have a $200,000 base price on that with a $45,000 performance package upgrade, which is 50 grand times a 90% take rate. I think they would fill the performance package orders first, and then this amount will come down as Tesla makes more and more of the base config. So full self-driving, this amount ought to start high and get higher as time goes by for the Fremont Roadster, you would think. This might be a hard vehicle to drive slow. After racking up enough speeding tickets in your Fremont Roadster, you might want to use FSD set to the speed limit just to prevent your lead foot from getting you into a world of hurt. Though probably anybody who can afford a Fremont Roadster can afford some speeding tickets. All right. Next, look at the Shanghai models. We're going to start with the Model 3. These prices are lower, and they're significantly lower. So $39,656 is what I was assuming a year ago this time, which rose to $41,760 after converting from yuan to US dollars at the time. $40,040, and then $39,225 was my assumption in Q4. So that number has come down now to $36,401, where I've got it holding all year. So that's significantly less than it was previously. And this is taking AL293 times 0.6. Here is AL293 times 0.6. So a $32,008 US dollar conversion if you assume 7.18 yuan per US dollar. at a price point of 229,900 Chinese yuan. And that's how you get to 60% of the amount for that config of Model 3, the short range. For the long range, you've got this other price point, 329.9, and then they sell hardly any performance Model 3s because those come from Fremont. They don't make performance Model 3 in China. So that's how I'm building up to the base price. And then these are applying a take rate of, 60% on paint. So 40% of people taking the free paint color, 60% paying, 668 US dollars equivalent for paint. Performance package, very low indeed, a $1,600 contribution there. 167 for wheels, 334 for interior and seating configs, and then very low take rates on full self-driving in China. So I've got those starting real low and growing as time goes by from where we saw them in 2022. Maybe Tesla can get their act together in the second half of the year and open up some full self-driving features in China that will encourage more people to see that it works and buy it. Alright, so cash buyer ASPs will be lower in Q1 out of China than they have been last year, more like 43, 44 last year. It'll be more like 39 or 40 this year. At the cash buyer ASP line, then we've got some leased vehicles impact here, which is always a negative. Destination delivery fees, regulatory credits, other. So the other ought to rise over time as more people buy the over-the-air upgrades, data plans, FSD subscription packages, etc. So that gets you to total revenue per delivery. Instead of the 45 grand it was last year, maybe more like 42, 43, something like that. So revenue for this model, 2.7 billion on Shanghai Model 3s. Now some of these assumptions seem high to you. Recall that not all of these vehicles will be sold in China. Half of them will be exported to Europe and the rest of the world, where more people will buy more of the options than the famously frugal Chinese buyers will. Next, the Shanghai Model Y. Base configuration 39 is where I have the price point. So there's, again, a mix of people who are paying the China buyer price, which is lower than the export buyer price, the European price for vehicles produced in China or wherever else in the world Tesla is shipping, Australia, New Zealand, etc. So yeah, these are my assumptions for the Model Y, dropping from 49,000 at the beginning of last year, 47, 46, down to 42 in Q1, and then rising some from there, 43, 44 by the end of the year. So this is how that looks. Revenue for this model, a pretty big fraction of the total, about 1/4 of Tesla's automotive revenue is going to come from just Model Ys produced in Shanghai, so a big piece of Tesla's total automotive. I'll have to do something with this space sooner or later for the small / robotaxi. I may have to figure out some name for a less affordable, a more affordable vehicle, a lower priced vehicle. I'm not convinced it'll be a compact. It doesn't look compact with the sheet drawn over it in the Investor Day presentation. It looks like Tesla has figured out how to make a regular size car that just costs less with a Spartan design aesthetic. Next, the Berlin section. One day they'll make Model 3s there, I think. For now, they only make the Model Y. So I'll show you that. Base config, 38,990 is where I've got that price right now. It was 41,990 in the previous quarter, and higher than that at the beginning of last year, more like 43 for a base config price. I'm holding it at 38,990 all year. for the Berlin Model Y starting price with a big performance package take rate on it, $11,000. Well, if you're on the Autobahn, you want to go fast, right? So I've got 0 times X355 plus 48,499 minus X355. So I've got the amount of the, so there's one price with performance and there's one price without. Oh, and the long range is also in here. So mostly what you see here is that people are buying the long range and not buying the base config, the standard range. They may not be selling any standard range produced out of Shanghai, which is what accounts for this being such a big number here and in the previous quarters. So I had to figure out what that mix was. Yeah, and then there's the performance package with a lower take rate on it. So my assumption here is nobody is getting a standard range Model Y. 70% of people are getting a long range Model Y, and 30% of people are getting a performance Model Y. That's what this says. Took me a minute to refresh myself on what I was doing there. Here I've got a 25% take rate on a $2,500 wheel option. Here I've got a 25% take rate on a $1,000 tow hitch option and a 20% take rate on a $4,000 interior / seating package option for Berlin Model Ys. Then we've got the full self-driving package. I'm just growing what we had in the previous quarter by 20% here from 950 to 1140. I've been growing this for a while from a 6% take rate on a $12,000 full self-driving option. So since then, the price of full self-driving has gone up, giving you part of that increase for free. Then we've got the total cash buyer ASP. It's a lot lower than it was a quarter ago, $6,000 down, based on the base config and the LR prices coming down for the Berlin Model Y. Lease vehicles impact about the same. Destination and delivery fees, same. So yeah, at the beginning of last year, this was a pretty high ASP, and it has fallen a lot, and I'm projecting that it'll stay there around $54,000, $55,000 total revenue per Berlin Model Y sold in 2023. That's a lot lower than this more than $60,000 per vehicle revenue we saw last year. I think, again, Tesla doesn't deliver reporting at this level of detail, so I have to guess. And I never get to find out how close I was unless Tesla drops hints that help us figure that out, which happens rarely. Next we've got Giga Texas. So how about the Texas Model Y? Well, that price has come down as well. So I'm matching what I forecast for the Fremont Model Y. It's the same price from either location. So I've just got that linked here. For the performance package, I'm taking half as much from Model Y as from Fremont. X265 times 0.5. Let me just trace this through really fast. Yeah, I'm assuming a $1,600 LR / performance package upgrade at Fremont and half that much at Giga Texas. Next, wheels, $500. Same assumptions we saw above from Fremont, getting us to a $64,000 ASP for cash buyers in Q4 of last year. Including that $1,000 assumption for the average amount of December delivery incentives. That's come down a lot. That's down, almost $5,000 from where it was a quarter ago. So this is lower for sure. And you see that flow through because these other assumptions haven't changed much. So you will see the ASPs come down for this vehicle. Then for Cybertruck, I'm probably going to have to push out the timing on these. Maybe we'll see a few Cybertrucks get made in Q2. Maybe not. Maybe it'll happen later in the year. But I've got a performance package upgrade assumption starting at 20 grand and then coming down from there for a dual motor or a quad motor config of Cybertruck. Who knows what they're going to decide to make first. We'll have to wait and see. Full self-driving take rate ought to be pretty high on this one. I guess I'll stay consistent and just show you 2022 and 2023 columns here. Making total revenue per Cybertruck delivered of about $80,000 because I think they're going to start by making those multi-motor configs that are priced higher. Then we don't have a lot of semis being made, but here are my assumptions for how much revenue per semi. I think it's going to be a $300,000 price point-ish. For psychological reasons, you're supposed to knock off a few bucks from a round number so that it starts with a lower number. So $299,900 is what I'm assuming here for the semis, with a performance package of $49,000, meaning the long range semi. I think that's the only kind Tesla's making right now, the 500-mile variant. With a little bit of interior option, maybe a little bit of full self-driving option, maybe getting you to about $350. With a few assumptions underneath that, I don't think Tesla's going to let people lease the semi. I think they're going to have to buy it outright, at least for a while. So maybe you're looking at a total of 360 grand per semi sold, something like that. And that gets you to these ASPs for all sites and models combined. So it has come down in total, from a peak last year in Q2 of, 57,000 fully loaded revenue per delivery. I've got that down to 53, so a $4,000 decrease isn't nothing. That's something. That'll materialize with worse profitability in Q1 for sure, but I think after that it'll get better. So here's what it looks like for total Fremont. Not as bad an impact. Really, these prices aren't a lot lower than they were last year. But from Shanghai, we are seeing a pretty significant dip here in revenue per vehicle. From Berlin, it's a very steep discount from where we were a year ago. Way down versus what I was assuming in Q1 of 2022, and a pretty steep decline from just the most recent quarter. Then for Texas, yes, those are down significantly, only making the Model Y. Model Y was the vehicle that had the biggest price cuts as a percent of the previous price point. And that gets us to these total revenue dollars. So I've been talking about the revenue by model. Well, despite selling a lot more vehicles in Q1 than Tesla sold in Q4, I think the total automotive revenue is going to be almost exactly the same, 21.8 again, for excluding leasing. Then the leasing amounts, maybe a little bit more leased sales, making total Tesla automotive and leasing revenue of 22.6 against a sequential, prior quarter 22.5. So not up by very much, not even up 0.1 billion from last quarter, despite selling a lot more vehicles due to those price cuts, right? And then increasing significantly throughout the rest of the year, not from price increases, but from delivery increases, having more production weeks and getting more of those vehicles to buyers before the end of the quarter. So that's the revenue section. This is stage 2, and that's the automotive portion. The next part of stage 2 is just figuring out, hey, what are we going to forecast for Tesla energy revenue? Well, the way to do that is to forecast the amount of solar deployed. Those are measured in megawatts, the way Tesla reports them. So this is what we saw last year, 48, 106, 94, 100. What I'm forecasting for 2023 is 90, 127, 179, 254. So big growth in solar deployed. Then for storage deployed, and this is measured in megawatt hours, Tesla had 846 last year, 1133, 2100, 2462. What am I forecasting for the rest of the year? Huge increases. So 3097, 4675, 6401, 8772. What's doing this? Well, you don't have to make that many more megapacks to grow this number a lot. And Tesla now has a dedicated megapack production facility in Lathrop. So if they're not cell constrained, if they're able to get their cells, and they ought to be able to, they should be able to increase the number of megapacks they make per day. That's in the single digits these days, and it's going to go into the double digits, and then hopefully to more than 20 per day by the end of this year, resulting in these megawatt hours worth of production. How am I building up to this? Well, I've got a revenue forecast below, and I'm dividing that by how much storage revenue per watt hour, I think. Some people do this per kilowatt hour. I'm doing it per watt hour here. You can do the conversion if you want. So what we've seen for storage revenue per watt hour, 44 cents, 36, 34, 37. I have that going higher with more megapacks being sold. How am I getting to the megapack revenue forecast? Well, I'm assuming 6 megapacks. These are megapack. It's a combination of regular megapack and megapack XL at a $1.7 million per average megapack unit sold. Estimate 90 days per quarter, 6 megapacks produced per day is the assumption. If you believe those assumptions, 6 megapacks per day, 90 days per quarter, $1.7 million per megapack sold, then you believe almost $1 billion worth of megapack revenue in Q1. Now I've got that at much lower numbers last year before the Lathrop facility was up and running. So then for future quarters, I'm assuming that rate of megapacks produced jumps to 10 per day on average in Q2 with a $1.8 million revenue per megapack sold, rising to 1.9 million per megapack sold at 15 units produced per day in Q3, and 21 megapacks produced and delivered per day. The revenue recognition is tricky on these. You may be thinking, hey James, they're producing more than this now. Yeah, but they have to actually transport them to the site, install them, and put them into service before they can declare all the revenue from them. So there's a little time lag between production and the revenue actually appearing on the income statement. So I'm accounting for that lag with lower. I don't know if they're lower or not. I'm taking my best guess at these. The Lathrop facility is supposed to be able to produce 25 megapacks per day on its own, and then Giga Nevada is still producing some megapacks, maybe not very many, but that's where these amounts were coming from in previous quarters. So that's how I'm getting to the revenue. Then you take the revenue, you divide it by the revenue per watt hour, and that, if you believe those, then this is how much storage deployed Tesla will be reporting, with this revenue per watt hour climbing over time as more Megapack XLs get sold, with the fully loaded trailer full of batteries and power management systems and the software people are buying with it, the maintenance plan that goes with it, etc. I'm calling all that Megapack. That's not the only product Tesla makes. They also make solar panels, so I've got that here. There's a little seasonality in the solar panel business, so I have to knock these down from where they were in the previous quarter. That's what you see me doing here, and then rising over time. The growth in solar panels shouldn't be as much as the growth in solar roof should be. Tesla seems to be ramping up solar roof production, so They'll be getting more of those out to the field and installed and declare the revenue for them. Powerwall is a compulsory purchase now. They're bundling at least one Powerwall with every solar roof installation. That just makes the installation process more standardized. If there's always a Powerwall, at least one Powerwall in the equation, helps Tesla do more jobs faster when they kind of require at least one Powerwall with every installation. And then there's other, including energy as a service revenue. That ought to grow over time, so I've got a growth rate in here for that, leading to more total Tesla energy revenue as time goes by. And I think that's the end of the revenue section. We're almost there. I'll stop before I get to the cost of sales section by talking about services and other. How do you know how much revenue there's going to be for this? Well, I have a big badass formula here that figures out how much services and other revenue there ought to be as time goes by. You can see what it's been. I tie this out every quarter to what Tesla reports. And then in the future, I've got this amount growing. One of the portions of this calculation is figuring out how much non-warranty, out-of-warranty repair revenue there ought to be for Teslas that have passed their 4-year warranty time period. And then I've got some other assumptions in here for the other kinds of revenue that fall into this category. Making total revenue, you add all those different divisions together, automotive, energy, and services and other, and that gets you total revenue. So I've got that number rising some from 25.8 last quarter to 26.2 in Q1, and then increasing a lot from there as Tesla energy and deliveries globally increase. Regulatory credit revenue, these are just total dollar amounts down here, so 0.678 in Q1 of last year was the most ever. Tesla had a one-time adjustment in there for some regulatory credits they had previously sold that they were allowed to take more revenue on due to a change in a revenue recognition principle accounting standard. That probably won't happen again, so I have lower amounts forecast in 2023 on a per vehicle basis, but because Tesla is selling more vehicles, the total dollar amount is about the same here. So you can see those net growth rates here, year over year net growth rate per vehicle. Then there was a Fiat Chrysler automotive, aka Stellantis, regulatory credit sale commitment that I had been modeling in here. That's over now as of the end of last year. And that gets you to this dollar amount. What's this doing? It's the regulatory credits times a million divided by X 157. So this is giving you the total regulatory credits per vehicle sold. So these are lower than they were last year. So they've been knocked down. And that's the end of the revenue sections. That's stage 2. Stage 2 figures out how much revenue there is. With that, I will check back in with Loki and see that he is still sleeping. He moved around some while I was talking, but he is down for the count. And I'll end the video here by saying if you've enjoyed today's video, click the like button or leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of the video. Or subscribe to my channel. Any of those are free to do. You can subscribe to my channel right over here. Click the notification bell if you want to be alerted whenever I post fresh content. Thank you to everyone who supports me, either through Patreon, where you get early access to all my videos the day that I upload them, or by joining my YouTube channel as my executive producers Kathy Kitchler and Halter Ferguson Financial did, and I'll see you in the next one.